Does your heart rate go up when your name gets called in meetings? Are you constantly thinking of what to say or what question to ask so you can be seen or heard? Or are you so afraid to say something because you don't want to sound dumb? Or maybe worse than that, someone's curious about the comment you just made and you're afraid you won't have an answer for them. You are not alone. And this was me for the majority of my career. Today, I'm going to give you 4 simple but highly effective tips that most people don't know that can break this cycle, just like I did. This was exactly me for so much of my career. I'd be so scared to say something in a meeting because what if I said something dumb and everyone found out that I wasn't as smart or as talented as they thought I was? What if I said something that had nothing to do with what we were talking about? I'd say something dumb, I'd get fired, I'd lose my house, be homeless. I knew deep down that that wouldn't happen. Well, maybe. But that's how I genuinely felt. So much pressure to be seen and heard because that's how you get ahead. And at the very least, that's how you don't get fired. But you know what? I know from experience that 60 to 70% of other people in that meeting felt the same exact way. Now, if the meeting was 3 to 4 people, that's easy, right? But if there were 10 or more and there were executives in there, forget about it. I was a clam, and each time someone made eye contact with me, my heart would just race. Boom, 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 boom. Comment down below if you've experienced this, and let me know what it felt like and what thoughts were going through your head. I can tell you though, the exact moment this started to change for me. I was at a Netflix product innovation offsite. All of the product directors and VPs were there, probably 25, 30 people. And we were set up in a square, all facing the middle, so there was nowhere to hide. There was no front of the room, there was no back of the room. We were all just out there exposed. And we went around the room stating our intentions for the offsite, and even that had me anxious. I didn't want to say something that someone else said because that would mean I didn't have any independent thoughts of my own. And I didn't want to say something that didn't feel meaningful enough for me to take the time to be there. I forgot what I said, so don't hold this against me. It was like 7 years ago, so I forgot. But I do know that I was nervous as hell because I felt like every time I spoke, my job, my reputation, my future was in the balance. And it wasn't ever, but that's just how I felt. So getting to strategy number 1, get rid of the pressure to perform. And I get it, it's easier said than done, but it is possible. It just takes practice. But it helped me do was to be more present and not feel like I always had something to say. My leader told me that day that she doesn't keep count on how many questions or comments that I make, and that it's okay to say something, but it's also okay not to say something. She said if I felt compelled and have something insightful to add, go for it. But if not, then don't sweat it. And I know it sounds simple, but just having that expectation set for me by her and even just set by myself allowed me to be more present. And now let me explain a little bit deeper. When I was so caught up and stressed about what I was gonna ask or say in these meetings, the conversation would keep moving. So I was always behind because I was thinking about the last point and whether or not what I had to say was 1, smart enough, and 2, relevant. And by the time I finally convinced myself that it was, the conversation shifted and I missed my moment. It was just a vicious cycle and I hated it. So taking this pressure off of not having to chime in all the time made it much easier for me to follow the real-time conversations. I was more present and I could speak or not on what was being said in the moment. And I know you're a processor. I'm a processor too. You need time to think and process. But if it's a conversation about what you do every day, how much processing do you really need? If you do, then the last tip, number 4, might be the best for someone like you. Okay, moving on. Tip 2. This is one that I've used to help others, but it helped me out a ton. During that same offsite, I know a lot was done here at this offsite, I was the only creative executive there. Most were product managers and engineering leaders. And during one of the breaks, I mentioned to another executive that I felt out of place. I was the only creative in the room full of product people. Why was I even there? He looked at me and said, "What does it tell you that you're the only creative executive here?" And me being stressed and anxious, I'm like, dude, I don't know. What does it say? What does it mean? What it meant was that I was the only voice of creative. That from a creative perspective, my voice was the most important. I represented an organization of 150 people who delivered on so many of the plans that we were creating right in this room. So not only was I representing myself and my team, but no one else in the room understood creative timelines, deliverables, turnaround times, all of that stuff, the whole shebang. And if I didn't give my perspective and thoughts, no one would understand or they'd miss the creative context altogether. So More explicitly, tip 2, you're in each room for a reason. People don't just invite you to meetings just to make the meeting bigger. It's your perspective, it's your opinion, it's your expertise that's important. They want it and they need it. Let me say it again, they want it and they need it. If I didn't speak for creative, who would? People value your thoughts and perspective. Don't rob them of that, and don't make them figure it out on their own. I think we know how that will end up. All right, so next, the third tip I have for you is use your gut and be transparent. Don't pretend or try to fake that you know what you're talking about. If you don't know something, just be honest about it. Say, I might have missed it, but, or something to that effect. Be mindful, but also ask the question you need to understand what's going on. 9 times out of 10, someone else has the same exact question as you, I promise. And if something doesn't make sense to you, it probably doesn't make sense to other people too. We all have different levels of book smarts, street smarts, and we as humans know when something just doesn't feel right. And if you feel that, then ask. It's better to ask and know than to assume and just get it wrong. And if you follow my channel, I talked about how I lost Netflix $2 million on a sunk project, but still worked there for another 6 years. Maybe, just maybe, if someone asked the right question during that project, we could have saved that money. We had a gap in our knowledge and we didn't question ourselves. We needed someone to simply ask, does this still make sense to do? But no one did. And we didn't see it because we were just too close to it. You could be the one in the room to give that aha moment. And as promised, for the processors, me too, the final tip isn't about speaking up in meetings. What? Isn't this a video about meetings? Yes, but hear me out. This last one is for you and for other folks who might need more time to truly understand what's going on. An example is I led teams in 7 countries. English is not everyone's first language. So I had to learn as a leader and peer to acknowledge that our meetings were ran in English, and that isn't always easy for everyone. How would I feel if our meetings were ran in German, in Korean? I wouldn't stand a chance. Maybe Spanish, but still, no chance for this guy. How do we expect everyone else who doesn't speak English to be okay? So the final tip is 4, show up in other ways. What does that mean, Mr. Cryptic? Well, meetings aren't the only way work gets done, right? And it's not the only form of communication, true? Most companies use Slack now, comments and documents, email, so many other forms of communication outside of verbal. Man, I would even record quick Loom videos that I could edit and re-record if I didn't like it. And so there are so many other ways to show up. Pick the way that works best for you and just kill it. Get those comments in. Ask your questions in Slack. Shoot those Looms. Show up like never before. This can even make you more confident in meetings because you've read the documents, because we all do the pre-reads, am I right? You've already asked the questions, your pump is primed. So you're not going to be cured just by watching this video. It'll take practice and letting go of those fears, you know, those false expectations appearing real. You can steal that if you want, write it down, description below. But if you can take the pressure off and be more present, if you believe that you're in every room for a reason, because they want and need your perspective, if you use your gut, intuition, and just be honest and transparent. And finally, if you can show up in other ways, it will get easier. It'll take time, but just like everything in life, practice makes better, right? Not perfect, practice makes better. What do you have to lose? But more importantly, what do you have to gain? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you want more, hit me up, riconasol.com. Take care. I'll see you next time.